Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into something that honestly makes a lot of people squirm. The uncomfortable but absolutely undeniable reality of human power dynamics. You see, the feeling of having no control over people or events, it's basically unbearable for us. When we feel completely helpless, we feel miserable. Let's be real here. Nobody wakes up wanting less power. We all kind of want more of it. But in today's world, walking around looking visibly power-hungry is incredibly dangerous. We have to seem fair, we have to seem decent, and above all, democratic. So how on earth do we actually navigate this? Well, we have to be subtle, congenial on the outside, but cunning on the inside. And that is exactly what we're going to break down today. Okay, let's start things off with a quote that really sets the foundation for this whole concept. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. That was written by the legendary Renaissance diplomat Niccolo Machiavelli, and honestly, it just perfectly captures the core paradox of the society we live in. We all crave power and control, right? Yet we have to pretend we're entirely fair and rule-abiding. If we play by those strict, idealized rules of decency too literally, well, we just end up getting crushed by the people around us who simply aren't playing by those same rules. To truly understand these hidden, unspoken rules, think of Robert Greene's phenomenal book, The 48 Laws of Power, as your ultimate survival guide. Produced by Joost Elfers, this book literally looks at 3,000 years of history to distill what is basically the definitive playbook of power. It pulls back the curtain, showing us the incredibly subtle, indirect ways people manipulate, succeed, and ultimately survive in this grand social game we're all playing. All right, moving into our first section, the modern aristocratic court. Let's look at how this historical concept defines the games we're still playing today. Think back through history. Courts always formed around a person in power, right? Like a king, a queen, or an emperor. In those old courts, courtiers had to serve their masters. But here's the catch. If they fawned or sucked up too obviously, their peers would totally turn on them. Violent, overt power moves were a huge no-go. Every single maneuver had to be elegant, graceful, and highly indirect. Well, guess what? Today, we face a peculiarly similar paradox. In the modern world, our kings are our bosses, our CEOs, our social leaders. Everything has to appear super civilized and democratic, but beneath that polite, glittering surface, it's the exact same cauldron of dark emotions boiling away. Greed, envy, you name it. The game is exactly the same. Literally, only the names have changed. Whether you were trying to dodge actual literal poison in the court of Louis XIV, or you're just dodging metaphorical daggers in a corporate boardroom today, the weight of power is constant. Life is just a never-ending game that requires constant tactical thinking. You really have to master the arts of indirection. Think of it this way. If you're going to stab an opponent in a DAC, it has to be with a velvet glove on your hand and the absolute sweetest smile on your face. You can't just escape the game of power, so you might as well learn how to play it well. Section 2. The playbook in action. Let's dig into 3 very different laws to see the true breadth of these strategies. We're starting right at the top with Law 1, never outshine the master. The core definition here is all about maintaining a very delicate social balance. The goal is to always make the people above you feel comfortably superior. And the tricky part is, in your totally natural desire to please or impress them, it's actually incredibly easy to go way too far. So the crucial takeaway here is understanding the massive risks of trying too hard. If you display your talents a little too brilliantly, you might accomplish the exact opposite of what you intended. You'll actually inspire fear and insecurity in your boss. And the very second they feel insecure, boom, you instantly go from being a rising star to a giant target. The strategy Greene lays out is totally counterintuitive. You actually need to make your masters appear more brilliant than they truly are. Doing that is the secret sauce that allows you to rise to the heights of power without putting a massive target on your own back. Let's pivot now to a starkly aggressive strategy, just to show the absolute ruthlessness that this playbook sometimes requires. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. We aren't talking about mild office politics anymore. This is about pure survival when the stakes are at their absolute highest. The source material points out a rather brutal historical truth. Half measures just fail. Always. Great leaders going all the way back to Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. It's like a fire. If even one tiny ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it's smoldering, a fire will eventually break out again. Stopping halfway through a conflict basically just guarantees your own future ruin, because they will recover and they will seek revenge.
So in these rare extreme situations, the law dictates that the enemy has to be crushed in both body and spirit.
Okay, now let's contrast that sheer brute aggression with something entirely different. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. This law is brilliant because it's all about transforming apparent weakness into a devastatingly powerful weapon. The rule is, when you're the weaker party, never ever fight just for honor's sake. Choose to surrender instead. You see, surrender in this context isn't actually defeat. It's a highly calculated tool. By yielding, you buy yourself precious time to recover and just wait for your opponent's power to naturally wane. But more importantly, it completely denies your conqueror the satisfaction of actually fighting and beating you. Turning the other cheek here isn't necessarily a moral stance, it's a psychological weapon. It infuriates and totally unsettles your opponent, because suddenly they have nothing to push against. You are making your very act of surrender a mechanism of power. Moving right along to Section 3, the myth of non-players. Let's talk about trying to opt out of the game. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're saying, hey, I don't play power games. I'm just a fair, decent, straightforward person. And that forces us to ask a really direct question. Can you actually just opt out of the game entirely? Some people genuinely believe that consciously playing for power is evil, or just some toxic relic of the past. They think they can simply step off the game board and behave in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with power. But is that really a realistic option in human society? Well, Greene argues that you actually need to beware of these exact people, because while they express all these anti-power opinions out loud, they're often the most adept players in the entire room. Let's break down these supposedly virtuous archetypes from the book. First, you have the demander of equality. They insist everyone must be treated exactly alike. But by doing that, they ignore individual differences, they suppress people who excel, and they quietly redistribute rewards however they see fit. Make no mistake, that is a power play. Second, the perfectly honest person. We all know that being perfectly honest 100% of the time inevitably hurts people. Using blunt honesty is actually a strategy to convince you of their noble character, which serves as a super subtle form of coercion. And third, the feigned naive. These folks use a shield of innocence to protect themselves from ever being accused of seeking power. It lets them gain control while totally escaping scrutiny. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. A show of one's weakness is actually an incredibly effective strategy. Flaunting your morality, demanding strict equality, or using blunt honesty. Those aren't opt-outs from the game of power. They are just highly adept covert maneuvers. Think about it. True powerlessness wouldn't publicize its weakness just to gain sympathy, right? Those who make the loudest show of their innocence are often the least innocent of all. They're just throwing dust in our eyes. And that brings us to our final section, Mastering the Game and the Arts of Indirection. To actually survive and thrive out there, Greene advises that you have to protect yourself by learning these arts of indirection. Like Napoleon advised, and as our source material constantly highlights, place your iron hand inside a velvet glove. The core argument here is that you must outwardly seem to respect all the nice, polite rules of fairness and democracy, but inwardly, you have to be prudent. You need to understand these laws, not necessarily so you can go out and act maliciously, but to stop other people from using the game of power to manipulate or take advantage of you. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Tomorrow, take a really good look around your workplace, your friend groups, your own modern aristocratic court. Who is quietly outshining the master? Who is using surrender just to infuriate a rival? And who is throwing dust in your eyes by loudly claiming they don't play the game at all? Now that you can actually see the velvet gloves, how are you going to navigate your own court tomorrow?